Hi, welcome everybody. I'm glad to see you again. Welcome back. I really appreciate it. Okay, Margaret has asked us. It was her birthday on Tuesday, July 29th. Happy birthday, Margaret.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. 75 years young.
Yeah.
Welcome. Well, today is we're talking about the Star of Bethlehem. Fernando's going to be teaching about the conjunctures and retrograde motion. And if you've never heard of that, well, you'll be able to see it. He's putting together slides of videos so that you can actually see the motion of the stars as they move through time. So, without further ado, let's go into it. Revelation 22:16, I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Here's Fernando.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Thank you very much, Mr. Sparks, Ms. Sparks, and thank you very much, all of you. This study is about astronomy and the birth of Jesus Christ. And right here, we can see that Jesus Christ himself is saying that he is the bright and morning star. And we know that there is one bright and morning star, which we know as Venus. So the star that represents Jesus himself is Venus. And we know how the mythologies, the Greek mythologies, the Roman mythologies, and the Babylonian mythologies distorted the original meanings of things. But we know that they kept the idea of Venus as being a prototype of human perfection. So we can take that idea and say, well, Jesus Christ is the perfect human, the perfect man. So this is the Word and Science. With your help, with your support, we are in the part number 5. And this is the witness of the stars, the astronomy of the birth of Jesus. Let's start by putting the approximation of the time where the earlier Christians thought that Jesus Christ was born. The earlier Christians, we have the dates where they wrote and the approximate dates that they were thinking that Jesus Christ was born. When we had Dionysius the Small, Dionysius Exiguus, was a monk, and this is the monk that decided to put the birth of Jesus Christ where we have it at this time. As we can see, because he did his calculation in the year between the year 400 and 500, he was later than they. And we understand that Dionysius made a mistake of 3 years, which means that Jesus Christ, according to the earlier Christian writers, was born 3 years earlier than what we say that we are living today in the year 2014. So if Jesus Christ was born 3 years earlier, and if he actually divided the times, that's the beauty that he is a breaking of time between the past and the new. We will be adding 3 years to 2014, and it will be like 2017, according to the early Christians. We're going to validate this to see if they were right, but we have names like Irenaeus, Clement, Tertullian, Julius Africanus, Hippolytus, Origen, Eusebius of Caesarea, one of them that I really appreciate. He was a very good scholar, one of the earlier ones, and Cassiodorus. Let's start with the participation of the Gentiles in the birth of Jesus Christ. And for me, this is mind-boggling. God, in his foreknowledge, knew ahead of time that it was necessary that the mother of Jesus Christ and the adoptive father, that both of them will be in Bethlehem for the birth of Jesus. But let's see which was the pretext, or the situation that brought them there. And for me, this is totally mind-boggling, because he's a Gentile in his vain glory, the one that decides to establish something that everybody in his kingdom should sign an oath of allegiance to him. Let's see how Luke presents this to us. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus. So we are saying here that on his behalf or by himself, it was decided this next thing, that all the world is all the world with distinction, all the world within the dominion of the Romans, all the world under Rome should be taxed. And a better translation is registered or enrolled And this taxing, this enrollment or registering was first made when Cyrenius, we read in the Greek, was governor of Syria. And this word governor has been mistranslated because it's the Greek word hegemon, and might better be translated as an authority or the coordinator of that census from Syria. So the word hegemon is like an open word that means an authority. And according to the context, we can see that he was the authority in charge of the census from Syria and included the area of Bethlehem. And all went to be registered, everyone into his own city. So let's see how Caesar Augustus himself talks about this event. And we see in his autobiography that is called in Latin res gestae, which means like my goals or my achievements. He said in the next words, while I was administering my 13th consulship, when you check on the internet 13th consulship, you see that that matches with 2 BC. When I was administering my 13th consulship in 2 BC, the Senate and the Equestrian Order and the entire Roman people, all the nations that were under Rome, gave me the title Father of my country. That's how he writes. And Father of my country in Latin is Pater Patria. The abbreviation is Papa, that in all the Latin tongues, in Spanish for example, is the name that they give to the Pope. So he was the first father of his country. And we see that Luke is revealing us that the idea originated from him, but the way he's making it sound when he writes it is as if it had been the idea of his subjects, of his servants. So everybody needed to sign that they were making an oath of allegiance, of servitude to Caesar Augustus. Now, can you imagine how mind-boggling is this, that God knew beforehand that a Gentile will have this idea, and that this will be the pretext to bring to Bethlehem Mary and Jesus? That for me is mind-boggling. So right here, we have the Gentiles participating without knowledge in the birth of Jesus Christ. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. So when you do research of Joseph, you see that he is descending from David, but through Nathan. Nathan was the son of David, that is the ancestor of Joseph himself. Mary, to be registered with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. She was pregnant. And Mary was the direct descendant of Solomon, David, Solomon, and then all the royal lineage. So the one that was the real descendant through the royal lineage is Mary. Joseph was son through another of the sons of David, that was Nathan. But both of them were in the distant past related, and both of them descended from David. So they went to Bethlehem. And for this time, the Israelis in general had basically forgotten about the testimony of the astronomy, testifying about the birth of Jesus Christ. And the one that was governing that area was Herod. And when you study about Herod the Great, he was not so great. He was not even a Jewish person. He was from the descendants of Esau, the one that tried to kill Jacob. So he was from the Edomites. So he was basically invading some dominion that was not given by God to him, because God wanted the line of David to be on that position. So, and when the Magi, which is the name of the wise men, arrived, he had no idea about what they were looking about. That they went and they say, we are coming to see the king of the Jews that is born. And Herod said, wow, what? He needed to call all the wise men of Jerusalem. That, by the way, nobody liked Herod because he was a foreigner for the Jews. But he, by force, asked them, where is the king of the Jews born? And they investigated and they found the prophecy of Micah. And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the princes of Judah. For out of thee shall come a governor, is again the same word, hegemon, an authority a great power that shall rule my people Israel. So this is the prophecy. You see how God was in his foreknowledge anticipating that a Gentile in the future will have an act of vanity, because the year 2 BC is when Caesar Augustus was having his 25th anniversary as emperor, and at the same year Rome was celebrating the 750th anniversary of its existence. So for Caesar Augustus was like a big deal, and he gave the order, but when he writes, he make it look as if it was the idea of his subjects. And another point that we need to understand is that the Jewish people used to measure the days from evening to evening, from sunset to sunset. Since the very beginning, the first day of the reordering of the universe, we read that was the evening and the morning. And this is a very important point. And the book that helped me, that gave me light in this presentation, is The Star That Astonished the World by Ernest Martin, and Jesus Christ, Our Promised Seed by Victor Werlo. Those books are available online. And we are going to see, we saw the Gentiles, how they were involved in the birth of Jesus. Now we are going to see the constellations, how they were involved in the birth of Jesus. There is one point about the constellations. The constellations every year repeat their appearance in heaven, but there is something very interesting about what John is telling us about one of the constellations. The first one, as we saw 2 months ago, this is the beginning of all the constellations. And John is revealing what happened astronomically at the moment of the birth of Jesus Christ, at the very same moment when Jesus Christ was coming to earth, when Mary was given birth. And there appeared a great wonder, and the word wonder is sign, as in the signs of zodiac. So appeared a great sign of the zodiac in heaven, is how we understand this. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This is a totally astronomical vision that John had. And this is Virgo, the woman, with the sun at her back, at the sunset, and the moon at her feet. And when we investigate, together with other context that is revealed by the prophets, we realize that this happened in September 11, in the evening of September 11, at maybe 7 o'clock, to say something in average, that corresponded to the beginning of the year for the Jews. The very same day was the first of Tishrei, that is the month, the day when the year started for the Jews. And that was called the 7th month. And she being with child, now the prophet focuses himself in Mary, and he's saying, she being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. So you can see the perfect match with what we read here, being Mary great with child, and the prophecy of John is tying that event, and he's explaining which astronomical event was happening. So imagine this. We saw in Psalm 19 that the heavens declare the glory of God. So we need to ask as believers, what was the declaration that was seen in heaven when Jesus Christ was born? That was one of the most glorious moments in history. The Bible tells us that at the very same moment when Jesus Christ was being born, the brightest star of Virgo, which is the Spica, was touching the horizon. And that's really, really mind-boggling.
What's what?
Touching the horizon of visibility. So Jesus Christ coming out in reality, and the star that represents him for this constellation, that is the Spica, the branch, was touching right there the horizon. Like marking it, like saying, here, this that was being represented every year, year after year, finally is being fulfilled. And when you investigate astronomy, this view only can happen one day, because one day before, the moon is right here at that time of the sunset. And the next day, the moon is right there. So only one day, that precises God, that this can happen right here. So we have the Gentiles participating without knowing it in the birth of Jesus Christ, and the astronomy, because God prepared it from the beginning. And we are going to see how the same designer that designed the heavens is the same that revealed the law. Because in the same time that we have the mechanism of heavens every year repeating itself, he gave them some rules under the law of Moses